In today's fight news, we start off with former middleweight champion Robert Whitaker. The Reaper was on an episode of the Mighty Cast speaking on his upcoming opponent, Khamzat Chimaev, and he had this to say. You put the fact that it's against Chimaev, who got a lot of hype, he's going to bring a lot of eyes. He is the boogeyman in the division at the moment. Nobody wants to fight him. Nobody wants to have a go at him. So I get to have that run at him, which will be fun. Those are the fights that excite me because they're the type of fights I get a lot of honor and pride out of. Former middleweight champion Michael the Count Bisping also had something to say about the upcoming matchup between Whitaker and Chimaev. One thing Robert Whitaker's not going to do is run out of gas. The obvious thing is Khamzat always gasses. 5 rounds against someone like Robert Whitaker, if Khamzat can't finish Whitaker early, that could be a disastrous night for him in Saudi Arabia. A fan poll recently done on the social media account of MMA reporter Kevin Iole determined that Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje is the most anticipated matchup for the upcoming UFC 300 event. In this order, number 1, Gaethje Holloway. Number 2, Pereira Hill. Number 3, Oliveira Sarukian. Number 4, Prochazka Rakic. And number 5, Figueiredo Garbrandt. Speaking of the upcoming BMF title fight between Gaethje and Holloway, Max had this to say. Whenever somebody fights Justin Gaethje, they don't come out looking the same, but they just human. You cut them, they bleed red. So to the naysayers saying I can't do it, watch me. Per Chamatkar Sandhu on X. Per a press release, Roadhouse attracted a record-breaking over 50 million worldwide viewers on Prime Video over its first 2 weekends, becoming Amazon MGM Studios' most-watched produced film debut ever on a worldwide basis. Former Strikeforce lightweight champion Josh Thompson had this to say recently on an episode of the Weighing In podcast in regards to the upcoming matchup between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. It's not a high-level fight. We're not getting the best Conor McGregor. It looks like lightweight champion Islam Makhachev did a thing, showing off his shaved head on his social media account. As we reported yesterday, Max Blessed Holloway said that he would like to have UFC legend Mark Coleman wrap the BMF title around his waist if he wins at the upcoming UFC 300 event. Today, Mark Coleman verified on his social media account stating, "I'm so excited today. The UFC is bringing me in, giving me and my daughters tickets to the biggest show ever, UFC 300 in Las Vegas. So stoked. Let's go. The BMF title, that's the one I'm excited about. The main event is huge as well. The whole card is sick. See you there. What a great day to be alive. Be the best version of yourself you can be. You never know when you're gonna need it. Sober is cool. Carnivore diet, 9 ancestral tenets, Hammer House for life." Recently, on an episode of his podcast, longtime UFC announcer John Anik weighed in on Bo Nickel being on the main card of the UFC 300 event, stating, "There's just a different electricity. I think Bo Nickel checks a lot of those boxes. I'm not at all surprised to see him on the main card of a pay-per-view, whether the card is the deepest in UFC history or not." As we reported on yesterday's episode, featherweight standout Nate the Train Landwehr called for a matchup against Bryce Mitchell, stating, "He's got a great following, and he's got his own swagger, and I got mine, but that would be a good one." Well, Bryce Mitchell responded saying, "Let's do it." It looks like we have a fight. Following his controversial loss this weekend at UFC Atlantic City against former champion Chris Weidman, middleweight standout Bruno Silva had this to say in regards to the eye pokes that ended the fight. "I didn't understand it. He poked me in the eye in the second round, poked me in the third, and it's still a unanimous decision win for him?" Longtime UFC veteran Matt Brown weighed in on the UFC gloves that are responsible for such eye pokes. While speaking to the Fighter versus the Writer, he said, Every fighter, I guarantee, was sitting there watching that saying the same When are we going to fix these goddamn gloves? How many eye pokes are we going to have to see before we effing fix these gloves? This isn't even a complicated problem. Make it easy to make a fist. If you should have to force anything, it should be force your hand open. Hall of Fame referee Big John McCarthy also had something to say about the eye poke incident at this weekend's UFC event. On his Weighing In podcast, he said, "I can't have Chris Weidman getting preferential treatment as long as you're the one creating this problem. You need to address the problem and make sure the individual who's creating the problem doesn't do it anymore." Well, he did do it more. On his YouTube channel, interim heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall had this to say about heavyweight champion John Jones. "Absolutely, I fear him, but that fuels me. I want to prove that I'm the best in the world." It looks like new middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis has accepted a fight with former champion Israel Adesanya. On his Instagram, he posted, "Looks like someone wants another beating in Australia. I'm in. I also wouldn't want to fight the King of Africa on home soil. Manifestation's working good for you again." Recently, while speaking to Valeria Lipovetsky, MMA women's pioneer Ronda Rousey had this to say in regards to her loss to Holm at UFC 193. "I literally came into that fight concussed from slipping down some stairs, already after all these years of concussions. Then I had an absolutely terrible weight cut, which means you have less fluid in your brain to protect it. I was just trying to make it look like I wasn't hurt, but I wasn't there cognitively. I couldn't think as fast, I couldn't judge distance, and just from that one fight, everyone felt like, oh, she's a fraud." Per reporter Trocacao Franca, former flyweight kingpin Davison Figueiredo had this to say about his upcoming UFC 300 opponent, former bantamweight champion Cody Garbrandt. "We see he's mentally fragile. He doesn't have a good head. We see he hasn't come back after having a few losses, right? You have to be a badass. You need a strong mind to come back again. I think I'll affect his mind by touching him, and he's going to respect me more." It looks like top 10 featherweight contender Dan Ige is calling for a matchup against former champion Alexander Volkanovski. On his X account, he wrote, "Hey, Alexander Volkanovski, if you need a tune-up fight for Perth, I'd be happy to take the challenge." Per Nolan King of MMA Kings, in a memo issued today, UFC CBO Hunter Campbell notified fighters they will now receive 4 tickets each for family and friends to attend their fights that take place at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. The tickets are good for each individual fight only, and groups will be rotated between each fight. Previously, tickets weren't guaranteed. It was a bit situational, but fighters' family and friends were frequently purchasing tickets in order to watch live. While speaking to KP Sport, former bantamweight champion Peter Yan says he accepts Marlon Vera's call-out, stating, "Do I want to fight Marlon Vera? Yes, I'll be ready by November. Of course I'll do it. I'll take him to mixed martial arts school." The former champ also responded to recent comments made by Sugar Shana OMalley saying that he's going to end up in the BKFC, stating, "For Sean, the UFC is everything. It's not everything to me. I don't have the attitude that I overvalue it, and I don't see myself in other organizations. MMA is not everything to me." Speaking of the current champion, Sugar Shana OMalley, he recently posted on his YouTube channel what his game plan is going to be in his upcoming matchup against number 1 ranked Merab the Machine Dvalishvili. Below is the clip. In other fight news, world champion boxer Savannah Marshall is set to make her MMA debut June 8th at the PFL event in Europe. Lastly, we finish off with some fight announcements. There's been an update to the UFC Fight Night Las Vegas on April 27th. The main event is now Matheus Nicolau versus Alex Perez. Previously, it was supposed to be Manel Kape, but he is out due to an undisclosed injury, and Perez has stepped up to the plate for the fight. The former title challenger Alex Perez was originally supposed to fight on the same card against Tagir Ulanbekov, but now that he's filling in for the main event, that fight is off. And for the upcoming UFC Vegas 92 event on May 18th, welterweights Chaos Williams and Carlston Harris will face off.